Oh, are we good? Are we good? Oh, wait, there it is. Okay, I can see a little thing. All right, so it's Christopher McHugh and Sarah Winstead in the house talking about, I don't even know, what are we talking about? Oh, actually, I know what we can start with. So I noticed, this is just gonna be a little, like, blurb, not blurb, whatever you call it. And I saw your little picture thing with the sailboat and the little infinity thing. And I guess what occurred to me was that, hold up. I guess what occurred to me was that when you look at the way the infinity structure goes, it goes both in opposite directions, yet it comes back. Very much kind of like what we were kind of discussing before, which I don't really have, like, I guess, a handle on, but I should really not. Anyway, we were talking about autological, what were we talking about earlier? Help me out.
I have nothing to say until you tell me that I do. So right now I look in my cubby and there's nothing there. So you run this. Go.
This is funny. Okay.
We were talking about the theory of everything, how what happened to be the case when I adjured you to go into your pantry and look 3 shelves down, furthest thing on the left was the exemplar of the theory of everything. Yeah, there was risotto, there was, what is it, al dente pasta.
Yeah, spirals.
And, yeah, the spirals. And I further adjured you to define al dente, or whatever it is, whatever this Italian state of affairs so disclosed is. And you said it had something to do with in the middle. And I said to you
I said, no, we were talking about, I was talking about risotto and how risotto is kind of like a cross between the cross between pasta and rice, and how it's kind of like, well, I said it's like the midpoint between.
Yes.
Rice.
Which I, in my own head, my own special head, which is special indeed.
Yeah.
I likened to the metaxy of communications, or metaxis, the midpoint.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but, you know, one subject and another, which is also the paradigm of the equals 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 autological axiom, which is the axiom more basic than the Dedekind piano axioms of mathematics. Equals equals equals, and it's also a statement of the entirety of the Catholic faith when pressed. It's a statement of gift theory.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's a statement furthermore of the new logic, whereupon that which is compatible with the facts as they stand is in fact itself factual. Compatible, yeah, meaning it does not logically exclude, meaning when you introduce a new fact, the new fact does not displace or somehow negate the facts that are there.
It's basically.
Sorry? Wait. Did you say sorry? Don't say sorry. There's plenty of sorrow. There's more than enough sorrow to go around. Don't add to that. So.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah, go on.
So what I was going to say was that it's so basically, when we look at if we were to describe the theory of everything in different terms, it's basically, if we were to put
pause. I also adjured you, what does it say on the back of the risotto bag? All right, I said there are 2 paragraphs. You said there are 2 different languages saying the same thing, the same instructions for how to cook this stuff.
Yeah.
Different terms. All right, namely, signifiers, or different signifiers rather, can signify different significances or the same significances. Any given entity can signify any property, entity, or relationship or state of affairs. It is up to the person. So this is, once we become conscious of certain axioms, which are axiomatic indeed, this allows us to deduce very ably that that which is significant and relevant to persons as such, subjects as such, is indeed the ultimate reality. All right. So ultimate reality consists of that which is relevant to persons. Persons and that which is important to persons. Yeah. Okay. And this was in your pantry because I said, go in and look 3 shelves down to the furthest thing on the left, and you tell me what it is. And I had no idea. How did I know that this stuff would be relevant? Because I know everything is relevant. And if I say something truly, if I say it,
well, everything has significance. Everything has, so it's like, even if you can't necessarily, like, everyone likes to think that it's random.
Yes.
And it seems like it's random, but it's actually not. And there's, even if there's only how do I put this? The simplest things have the utmost importance, even if they are, how do I put this? Okay, so I have this image in my mind of what it looks like. I'm going to try and describe it. So it's kind of like the smallest things have the most significance, or not most significance. They have the utmost significance in the moment, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter what it is. But at the same time, sometimes the utmost importance is like a little flicker,
right,
instead of a huge raging fire. Yet
right.
yet they can be both at the same time. So
right.
So I guess it's kind of like Therese and her whole thing about roses and daisies, like Saint Therese of Lisieux, where
don't mind me. Carry on. I'm not really here. You do this. You do this.
Yeah, it's kind of like her whole it's kind of like her whole roses and daisies thing when she talks about how, there's lots of different flowers and all of them are equal. You have the majestic roses of like Catherine of Siena and like all those big saints or whatever. And then she said something along the lines of, but I'm content to be a daisy and I'm just as important as the rose. It doesn't matter how little or insignificant it is. There's actually the same amount of glory that a majestic rose has as there is with a daisy.
Yes, and it's also a different glory at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
this is the paradigm exemplar of the theory of everything, both physically, metaphysically, in any way you want to construe it.
The thing I was going to say earlier was that it's interesting as well, because if we were to boil down the theory of everything in one sentence, it's basically just the Catholic both and. Like,
correct.
That's it. Like that. Like if you want one sentence for it without all the, like, I guess you could say, intellectual mumbo jumbo. That's not mumbo jumbo. But if you wanted to boil it down, that's really what it is. In a sense, where you're not negating things and everything is affirmed, or everything that is good, true, and beautiful is 100% meaningful, necessary, and shared, valid. I feel like, what was I gonna say? I don't know. I'm getting a random thought about like.
Shut up! It's not random. It's not random. It's infinitely relevant. If anything that you've said prior to this is worth a shit, so you continue, please. It's not random. What is it?
Well, there's the idea of community that kind of goes in with that, with the sharing thing, because like if you can't share anything unless there's, by nature, you can't share anything unless there's people, unless there's things to share with. It implies community by necessity. Does that make sense? I feel like that makes sense.
It makes altogether too much sense, and it's causing an avalanche of ideas such that I'm ducking for cover. So you continue to talk, please.
Cool. Also, the idea of community that I'm thinking of right now also kind of brings me to what we were talking about before with, we were talking about symmetry, and I guess I'm just gonna like describe what happened earlier, like the other day or whatever, just so we can have it recorded. I was thinking about the concept of symmetry, and I'm not like a math person like at all, but
Liar.
geometry.
Liar. Liar,
But
liar, liar. Go on. That's all I have to
uh,
say.
okay, um, so symmetry. So I always understood symmetry to be kind of like equal. How do I put this? A relationship going in equal but opposite directions. So it's kind of going like this. And I was thinking about that, and I don't totally remember why I thought there was something like lacking with it, but there was something that I found intriguing with the concept of symmetry, because um, it seemed too limiting. And I remember I was asking my mom about it. I was asking my mom about symmetry, and she said that she mentioned something about because she's a super math person, and she mentioned something about I don't remember what she said, but she mentioned something about mirrors. And it occurred to me that something that is both, um, if you're going to have something that's symmetrical, symmetry isn't just going, you know, having a relationship going in equal opposite directions. It's also going forwards, like towards each other. Like if you were to have one mirror and one mirror facing each other, you get an infinity of like, I don't
Yes,
even know, just like it's on and on and on and on, never ending thing. Um,
precisely,
ties
precisely.
into the whole like infinity structure thing that I was mentioning before. How you have, I mean, I don't know exactly where you start in infinity, but wherever it starts, eventually what you're going to have in the beginning is you're going to have, it's going to go out equal opposite directions, like the original way, like the original, um, my original understanding of symmetry, but then it's going to come back around towards each other, towards each other, and even cross.
That's right.
Like, so it kind of, it's the same thing, really. And I also feel like there's a sense in which the mirrors can also be like people, basically, where
Yes,
like if you have two people, right, and it's like they, each person is a gift in themselves, and so there's this constant exchange between the other, not between the two, in this sort of all affirming, never negating, constant flow of I guess whatever is, within their own being. So, um, um, what was I going to say? Whatever flows within their own being. And it's just kind of like, and like this particular situation that you have between persons isn't just between, one and two, two people. There's a lot of, how do I put this? There's a lot of, it's the same core thing, it's just in multiple contexts, but it's not different contexts because it's all really the same thing. So
mm-hmm.
for example, you can have that between two people, between like you and I, but at the same time it's also what the church is, and it's also the relationship between Christ and the church, and it's also the thing that defines the Trinity. And it's all, so like it's all this, it all comes from relationality. It's the same stuff. It's the same thing at the core, even if the contexts are different. Um, so there was another point I was going to make about relationality and the whole sharing thing and the mirrors thing. Oh, the mirror coffin. The mirror coffin. So I was thinking of mirrors, right? So okay, so just so we have this on record, the mirror coffin is a concept that I guess, I don't know, it was an image that sort of popped into my head, but it seems to show up in a variety of places whenever there's like spiritual issues. And I feel like it's kind of like whenever things get rough, it's like the same, how do I put this? The mirror coffin happens to everyone. Um, whenever there's but struggles in the spiritual life, there's always going to be either the partial or full construct of this mirror coffin. So I guess I can define the mirror coffin. The mirror coffin is basically where you have a person who, okay, well, actually, okay, sorry. Okay, so the mirror coffin is basically had the idea because if you were to think of a coffin as a mirror, right? And or rather a coffin that's constructed of mirrors. So you're in this coffin and it's, shut and everything, and the outside, the outside is like the walls, if you want to call it that, of the coffin are mirrors, and the inside is also mirrors. And so the person who's inside of this is stuck because, you're in this coffin and you can only see your reflection and you can't see outwards. It's kind of like a double mirror, kind of like those interrogation rooms or whatever that you see in those police shows. So you can't see out when you're on the inside. You can't see anything out on the inside. And the people who are outside of the mirror coffin, the people who are not, because you're you, so naturally you no one else can really get into your mirror coffin, really, that you've constructed in order to kind of protect yourself from what you perceive as death. But the catch, this is the tricky, sneaky thing, with the mirror coffin, is that if you stay in the mirror coffin, it's going to kill you. And because you'll just die there. A man is not an island. So it's interesting because everyone else is on the outside of this mirror coffin. You're stuck in there, and you're wanting to get out because we naturally want to be free. Everybody wants to live. Everybody wants life, both physically and spiritually, I would argue. But because of the world as it is and fallen nature and everything, when you construct these walls to protect yourself, and it just kind of you think that you're helping yourself, because you're seeking a good when you construct the mirror coffin. You're trying to be protected. You want to be safe. You want a place where you can actually be yourself. But the only problem is that in this sort of not free way of constructing this mirror coffin thing around you, in trying to do that, you end up negating everybody else. You end up creating a little like island for yourself, if you will. And so the reason it's a mirror coffin is because you can't, no one else, there's no community. It's complete isolation, and you die in your own isolation, which is basically, I feel like, what hell is, really. So if it goes to its logical conclusion. So but the thing that's interesting with everybody else on the outside is that everybody else is, well, I don't know, I haven't really thought about everybody else, but there's a sense in which it relates to the diamond, it relates to the prism, but it depends on how I put this. There's a lot of complex stuff with regard to that. I'm not totally sure how to articulate it, but there are some cases where people on the outside can see through into the mirror coffin, into the interior soul of the person, into all of that. And
precisely.
But there are some times when the person on the outside can't see what's in the mirror coffin because it's a mirror. Like they only see themselves. So you have the person on the inside who sees themselves in their own mirror coffin, and then you have everybody outside of this mirror coffin. When they look at it, they only see the reflection of themselves in the mirror.
That's right.
So there's no actual communication happening. There's no actual exchange. There's no actual sharing. There's no actual, like when we were talking about the autological mirrors and the two, and the symmetry and how it's going both equal opposite and like this. It's the same thing with people where there's no exchange of gift between persons. There's no real communication. There's a complete break, a complete shattering of relationality between the two people. And until that relationality is sealed, fused, you can't see into the mirror coffin of somebody else unless that occurs. And so most of the time, the issue that ends up happening is people, or what ends up happening is we're all stuck in our mirror coffins. Everybody else thinks that they understand the person in the mirror coffin, when in reality, they only see, the negation of themselves. So, so it becomes like there's no real communication happening. There's nothing that's actually working. It just becomes this crazy thing. And so it's just like a breakdown of everything. Are you hanging in there? Please don't die. Okay.
Go on.
Okay. But then here's the catch too. The cool thing is that, one, God exists. Two, there's an actual savior who's actually going to save you. And three, there's actual hope. So the neat thing about this whole thing is that you have to break the mirror coffin. It has to shatter. The mirrors have to shatter. And the reason why the struggles in the spiritual life sometimes feel like death, and they're just the most difficult things ever, is precisely because we want to live and are trying to seek life and survive, because no one wants death. Is going to, like, the shattering of the mirror is shattering our means of what we think is trying to survive. And so it feels like death because, in a sense, it is a death. And so that's terrifying. And so a lot of the times we kind of, it's painful. And so you push back and you fight it, and you wailing and gnashing of teeth, insert, Job, complain. This is awful. This is suffering. This is horrible. Yes, it is suffering. It's awful. But the thing is that unless the mirror coffin breaks, is shattered, you're not going to be free. You're not going to actually live. You're going to die in the mirror coffin. So, so that initial, that struggle, that initial breaking of the mirror coffin is very difficult, and you kind of have to. It's very much a leap of faith, because your entire inner and possibly external world is crashing down around you, and you have to just hope that maybe this is the right direction. Okay, like this mirror coffin is shattering. Am I gonna die? Because I feel like I'm gonna die. But it's only with the shattering of the mirror coffin that the relationality comes back together, and that there can actually be communication, and that these things can actually fuse. So, it's, order has been restored. We're back in the Garden of Eden. So, yeah, that's, I guess, all I have to say on that at the moment. I don't really have any other ideas, but they're all interrelated. Each concept is interrelated. I don't totally get the spiral thing. I haven't really looked at it, but each thing is either facets. That's actually interesting. I was gonna say each thing is in and of itself its own like thing, I guess, and each one is related to itself, but they're all like the same. I guess this is where the equals things come in. Maybe, I don't know. And then yeah, I was gonna say something else, but now I don't remember. If it's important, it'll come back. So that's my shtick. What do you think?
I'm more than a little daunted. By the way, you have feedback.
What?
You have tremendous feedback.
Right now, or has it been going the whole time?
No, only when I speak.
Oh.
Therefore, what I'm going to do is ask you to either lower your volume,
okay,
or I will not speak at all and just end this, because what you've said is one of the most daunting and true things that I've ever seen. It also exemplifies the paradigm of the theory of everything, both physically, metaphysically, and so on, relationally, and is intrinsic to logical law as such. It is not at all a metaphysical woo or some such thing, but it's a statement of logical law.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll try to be brief. I'll try to be very brief indeed. The new logic, which is really the old logic, but it's new because we've observed certain things that are very much observable for anyone who is interested in looking. But it changes things. It changes the way that we understand causality. It changes the way we understand relationality. The equals axiom. If there were to be three characters strung together, three equal signs, or any three characters strung together, the only coherent understanding of these three strung together characters is equals, namely the equality relationship is equal to the equality relationship. It's the most basic axiom there can possibly be in math or logic. From this, we can deduce certain things, namely everything that you said, everything that is proffered in the Catholic faith, everything that is really worth believing and hope, quite honestly. I'm going to not go through the process of deduction for this, but I will just sort of sum up the essentials. From what has been stated so far, it can be deduced, and I ask the audience to simply take this on faith at this point, though we can unpack it in a later, discourse. Yeah, a later discourse. The things that can be deduced is that which is compatible, logically compatible, namely without negation, facts as they stand, whatever they are. Whatever is compatible with the facts as they stand, as they are, is itself factual. This is sort of a sea change in understanding the way causality works, the way that logical entailment works, the way that inference as such works, is that by way of the process of non-negation, we can infer that that which is not negated, that which is not excluded by what is the case, is the case. Precisely. The actual is that which does not exclude actuality.
Yeah.
If it does exclude actuality, then it's not actual, and if it doesn't, then it is.
Wait, can we break that?
So,
sorry. Like in like normal people terms, potentially? Because what do you? I'm sorry, I like lost you for about 2 seconds. That whole you mentioned the word actual and actuality like 4 times in the same. So I just kind of.
Isness. It's like business except better because it holds business in being. All right. So
I love it.
Yeah. So, that which is not logically excluded by what is so, or what is actual, is itself actual, or is so. So from this, we know that whatever coheres, whatever can hang together, is together.
Yeah.
All right. So with reference to what you were saying about symmetry, if you have, say, on some equation, some left side, all right, and then you have the equal sign. Well, whatever is coherent with, whatever is not excluded by that which obtains on the left side, does in fact obtain on the right side.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this is true symmetry.
Mirror image and
This,
symmetry. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's a chiral relation. We won't get into that in this discussion, but the disturbing part is that everyone missed this. Namely, so many have presumed that we could have thus and such fact or fact set, and we could change any other fact set apropos of the first and make them cohere.
Like
no.
Like truth tables?
Yes. Or to think that we could have a set of coherent propositions here, and then all else besides the other coherent propositions, and we could keep one the same and the others different, and it would actually hang together. No. Rather, what is the case over here on the left side, just by being itself, by the informational content as it is, logically necessitates that which would appear on the left side, or rather the right side of the equal sign. So whatever is coherent with the left obtains on the right.
No.
This is the underlying substratum for the theory of everything, and it can be proven very rigorously in a matter of a few statements, but we will not get into that. Right now, we'll more or less talk around it about some of the implications of it.
I feel like it's actually easier to talk around it instead of going directly in it.
For now, at least.
For now, because I feel like we don't have the language at the moment.
Yes, like on a wedding night, it's easier to go around it rather than in it. So.
Oh my gosh, Chris.
What? I didn't say that. The point being, what you are going on about with regard to the Mirror-Coffin and negations, there is a logical law called the law of explosion, where if you have a contradiction, if you have A and not A at the same time, you can derive literally any proposition from that.
Yeah.
So if there is a contradiction, any proposition follows. All right. So what follows from this upon the new logic is, if there is the negation of a fact, which does in fact obtain, then any proposition follows. And this happens psychologically, psycho-logically as well, logically, ontologically. It is, if I curse a fact, if I say, I do not bless this, but I curse it, that which has happened to me, however evil it is, if I don't give it a blessing, but I give it a curse, any fact follows. And from that any fact follows, I can only maintain my sanity. I can only maintain my position of, ersatz faux integrity by means of thereafter negating everything except that which I want.
Well, okay, so if we were to put that, okay, so that's the underlying structure of reality, basically. In regards to if we were to put that in a social context, it's basically misunderstandings the entire time.
Yes.
That's basically how misunderstandings occur, is like if you have, because of the law of whatever you just said, explosion or whatever it's called, theory, whatever, that's why. Well, it's interesting because you were saying that you can derive any proposition from the explosion, which is why it's the logical structure behind communication and specifically misunderstandings. So the thing that's interesting with that is that, like, if you're having an argument with a person, or not even an argument, if you're having some sort of misunderstanding, you can, like you were saying, it follows the same structure. You can derive any kind of idea from it, which is actually not the case. So, like, I don't even know. And it'll be either the opposite of what the person intended to say, or it'll be just some random shot in the dark, completely not related at all thing.
And you know what it'll be? It'll be the person who's hearing you, what they fear the most, because that's the first thing their attention is going to go to.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
But there's an interesting thing with that too, because it's not just in regards to how this logical structure shows up in the world, like in reality. I mean, granted, it already is reality, but like, you know, it's in this particular social context. Um, it's interesting too because it's not just it's not just any proposition that shows up. Um, Depending on the person, and I guess whatever the circumstances, like, you know, if they're in the mirror coffin, if they're out of the mirror coffin, if the person on the outside can see through the mirror coffin, or if they can only see themselves, depending on that, um, it seems like I just feel like there seems to be a pattern where what you were saying, what we were saying before, how, you know, the person hears the thing that they fear most or whatever, but that seems to be the constant pattern. It's not just you know, random proposition that doesn't have any relevance.
Yes, because the person seeks relevance. And if the person who is on the receiving end has a particular fear, that which they hear will be relevant to them apropos of their particular fear.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is exactly that way. And it's, you know, it entails an entire theory of communication, namely by means of non-negation. Only
Yeah.
by means of non-negation, namely, whatever your story is, namely, whatever your construal of reality is, your reality apropos of me and me, well, I don't want to use apropos too much, but vis-a-vis you, whatever that is, that whatever you say to me, my story, but rather it can be subsumed into and bodily apprehended and uplifted and amplified by my story. And supposing that that apprehension without negation and uplifting mutually obtains between two persons communicating, then we have what is the form of autological regress, which is also the form of ultimate reality.
What is
Namely,
autological regress again? Is that where everything has
autological regress is when a property predicates of itself, namely a way of being, is spoken of by that very same way of being. So, for example, it is true. Well, it is true that it is true. And it is true that it is true that it is true. And it is true that it is true that it is true that it is
isn't that
true.
just like circular though? Not even circular, because
It's
it's just statements.
it's mirroring. In other
Mm,
words,
yeah.
it's mirroring without negation. The mirror coffin, however, is a mirroring based on negation.
Yeah.
So, with autological regress, for example, I say to you, how are you doing? You say, good. Well, I say, well, I'm glad that you're good. You could say, well, I'm glad that you're glad. And I could say, I'm glad that you're glad.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you're glad that I'm glad, and I'm glad that
And so on and so on and so on. Yeah.
Precisely. So whenever that form of autological regress obtains, then we have right relationality. However, when we break that regress, we have a spiral. We have what is exemplified in the psychological loops, which you are.
Oh, okay. Loops.
And the psychological loops are a spiral because there is never the same moment of time repeated twice. So it's not just quite a circle, though the logical form itself is a circle because it's always new every time it reiterates. All right. So we have a spiral if indeed we break what is the relational form of autological regress.
Wait, hold on. So
autological regress. Rocket, go. You.
So you were saying that it always starts new, but with the psychological loops. But the thing with the loops is that what was I gonna say? How do I put this? It's like it's a weird image in my head of what this looks like, but I
Say
don't know how to describe it.
Say it. So many people are watching. So many people are watching. You better just say it.
In my own time. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So it's interesting with the loops because you start and you finish with the same statement.
Yes.
But those two are, if you look at a spiral or whatever, you have the beginning and the end, but they're not the same. They're not, I don't know how to, I just think it's weird because I feel like it's like they're the same, but I feel like there's also a sense where it's like they're not the same because it's like, okay, you have, how do I put this? It's like your premise and your conclusion are the same, but the premise is not the conclusion and the conclusion is not the premise, yet they both are, it's like they're the same thing at the core, but the positions are different.
Yes. And the positions are different only because of the relevance that is attached to either apropos or vis-a-vis of, or vis-a-vis apropos of
I don't know.
the person hearing.
I don't speak logician. What?
The person hearing.
Yeah.
Namely, it's different because it's a different hearing. It's a different iteration of the same thing. So the same thing can be understood by two people very differently. The same symbol.
Yeah.
Lucille Ball. Yeah, precisely. Also, the Italian-English disjunction on the back of the, what was it called? The risotto?
Oh, risotto?
The
Yeah.
lemon risotto?
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's understood differently by different people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Different symbols, different people, or even same symbols, different people.
Yeah.
If I say to you, for example, you look good today, as a compliment.
Yeah.
However, if I say to another, or even to you on a different day, you look good today, you could understand it as you look good today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that which is symbolized only for the one receiving it. And man, we could go on and on about this in terms of what it means in the new logic, but it's
I feel like we just covered like all the main, I feel like we covered all the bases, like in the not in like a step-by-step logical proof where we have everything hammered out, but we have the main points.
We did. So get off my ear. And now we talk about whatever we want off the air.
Cool. All right.